America's economy is built on a mountain of debt, over $35 trillion in climbing, rising by nearly $1 trillion every 100 days. That's more than $15,000 owed by every taxpayer in the nation, a number that grows faster than paychecks ever could. But while Washington prints money and Wall Street gambles with speculation, everyday Americans live on the edge, one paycheck from disaster. And entire states are already unraveling under broken pensions, bankrupt hospitals, failing schools, and shrinking populations. The truth is chilling. When the next recession hits, some states won't just struggle, they'll collapse. Today on Discover the Nation, we reveal the 10 U.S. states most at risk of economic implosion.
Number 10. West Virginia. West Virginia is collapse in slow motion. Once the proud heartbeat of coal country, the industry that defined its economy has shrunk by more than 75% since 2010, erasing tens of thousands of stable, high-paying jobs that supported entire generations. In their place, low-wage retail, service work, and a dependency on federal transfers that account for over a third of the state's budget. Nearly 20% of residents live in poverty, and the median household income of $55,000 sits far below the U.S. average. More alarming is the workforce participation rate. Just 54% of working-age adults are even in the labor market. That's not unemployment, it's abandonment. It's a workforce that is checked out. The opioid crisis has made things worse. West Virginia leads the nation in overdose deaths, with some counties reporting 84 deaths per 100,000 residents. The epidemic drains billions from state health care and leaves once thriving towns filled with empty storefronts and broken families. Population decline tells another grim story. Since 2010, West Virginia has lost over 100,000 people, and it now has one of the oldest populations in America, with 21% over age 65. That translates into ballooning pension and health care costs, with a shrinking tax base to pay for them. And the state's infrastructure? It's collapsing. 1 in 5 bridges is structurally deficient. Rural water systems are outdated, and roads crumble faster than they're repaired. Without federal dollars, many projects would grind to a halt. West Virginia isn't bracing for collapse. It's already living through one, and the next economic shock could push it beyond recovery.
Number 9. Mississippi. Mississippi holds the grim title of ranking at the bottom of nearly every major national measure. The median household income sits at just $48,000, a staggering $22,000 below the U.S. median, leaving families struggling to cover even the basics. Nearly 20% of residents live in poverty, and in some rural counties, that number climbs to more than 35%, creating entire communities locked in generational hardship. The state's labor force participation rate is the lowest in the nation at just 56%, reflecting not only unemployment but widespread economic despair. Tens of thousands have simply stopped looking for work. Education is perhaps Mississippi's deepest wound. Ranked 50th in test scores, its underfunded schools and teacher shortages rob young people of opportunity. College access is limited, and those who do graduate often leave permanently, fueling a relentless brain drain. Healthcare is no better. Mississippi has the highest infant mortality rate in America and one of the lowest life expectancies, with residents living nearly 5 years less than the national average. Rural hospital closures have left some families driving over an hour for care. With 14% uninsured, even a single medical bill can trigger financial ruin. Infrastructure adds another layer of crisis. 1 in 4 bridges is deficient, and the repeated Jackson water emergencies are symptoms of a decaying system that needs billions in investment. Meanwhile, the state's budget is dangerously fragile. With 40% of its funding reliant on federal transfers, Mississippi has little control over its own financial survival. Mississippi's combination of entrenched poverty, collapsing healthcare, failing education, and a shrinking workforce doesn't just leave it exposed to recession, it leaves it vulnerable to systemic breakdown, the kind where schools, hospitals, and even basic services risk failing all at once.
Number 8. Michigan. Michigan is often painted as a comeback story. Detroit's lofts, Ann Arbor's tech corridors, Grand Rapids, breweries. But underneath that surface, the state remains dangerously fragile. The auto industry still dominates, making up nearly 20% of the state's GDP, which means one downturn in car sales sends shockwaves through every corner of the economy. During the 2008 crash, Michigan led the nation in foreclosures. The risk of history repeating is never far away. Household finances remain unstable. Over 40% of residents struggle with overdue bills or medical debt, and the median household income of $63,000 lags the U.S. average. Poverty is entrenched, especially in Detroit, where some neighborhoods still see rates above 30%. Entire towns in the Upper Peninsula are hollowing out, with boarded-up storefronts and schools closing due to population loss. Between 2020 and 2024, Michigan shed over 100,000 residents, draining the tax base and leaving behind an older, poorer population. Infrastructure is another wound. 45% of Michigan's roads are rated poor, and water contamination crises extend well beyond Flint. In some counties, children still drink from bottled water at school. Addiction magnifies the crisis. Overdose deaths have doubled in a decade, while rural hospitals shudder at alarming rates. The truth? Michigan never stopped being vulnerable. It patched the cracks, but the foundation is weak. And when the auto industry sneezes, Michigan won't just catch pneumonia, it could face another wave of collapse that wipes out its so-called recovery.
Number 7. Alabama. Alabama wears its cultural pride proudly, from college football to Southern hospitality. But beneath the surface, the economy is faltering. The median household income is just $59,000, placing it among the bottom 10 states, with 16% of residents living in poverty. For nearly 800,000 Alabamians, daily survival is a constant struggle. Education is one of the state's deepest weaknesses. Alabama ranks among the bottom 5 in the nation, with underfunded schools, outdated classrooms, and persistent teacher shortages. Only 27% of adults hold a bachelor's degree, compared to 36% nationally. This brain drain forces talented young graduates to leave for Atlanta, Dallas, or Nashville, leaving Alabama's workforce smaller and less skilled. Healthcare paints an equally grim picture. By refusing Medicaid expansion, nearly 300,000 residents remain uninsured. Since 2010, 15 rural hospitals have closed, turning entire regions into medical deserts. Infant mortality rates are among the nation's highest, and life expectancy lags by 3 years compared to the U.S. average. Infrastructure is cracking. Engineers graded the statement D+, with 16% of bridges structurally deficient. Broadband access in rural Alabama is spotty at best, limiting business growth and educational opportunities. Meanwhile, the state maintains one of the smallest rainy day funds in the nation, leaving it exposed when revenues fall. Alabama depends heavily on aerospace, agriculture, and automotive manufacturing. But that dependence is fragile. A trade war, a global slowdown, or a supply chain disruption could devastate the state overnight. One strong recession, and Alabama could face what residents already whisper: schools shutting down, hospitals refusing patients, and entire towns abandoned to poverty.
Number 6. Arkansas. Arkansas rarely makes headlines, but its decline is steady, silent, and just as dangerous as the louder crises elsewhere. The median household income sits at just $53,000, near the bottom nationally, while 15% of residents live in poverty. Rural counties are hit hardest, with no nearby jobs, no hospitals, and entire main streets boarded up. Healthcare is crumbling,
Over 200,000 residents remain uninsured, and since 2010, 10 rural hospitals have closed. In emergencies, families often drive over an hour for care. Medical debt is so pervasive it has become one of the leading causes of bankruptcy. Education is another weak link. Fewer than 25% of adults hold bachelor's degrees, and rural schools face chronic underfunding. Teacher shortages mean many classrooms operate without certified educators. That lack of opportunity drives young Arkansans to leave, and most never return. Economically, the state leans heavily on Walmart, headquartered in Bentonville, and the agriculture and manufacturing sectors. But Walmart is automating jobs, farming profits are shrinking, and manufacturing continues to lose ground to global competition. Dependence on such vulnerable industries leaves Arkansas exposed to shocks it cannot absorb. Infrastructure tells the same story. 40% of rural residents lack reliable broadband, shutting them out of modern work opportunities. Roads and bridges demand billions in upgrades, and nearly 45% of Arkansas's budget relies on federal transfers, making the state one of the most dependent in the nation. Arkansas isn't collapsing overnight. It's bleeding slowly. Families leaving, hospitals shutting, schools shrinking. But when the next recession hits, that slow decline could accelerate into full-blown crisis.
Number 5. Kentucky. Kentucky is trapped in generational decline, a story of an industry that collapsed and left nothing behind to fill the void. Coal, once the lifeblood of Appalachian communities, has lost 60% of its jobs since 2010. Entire counties built on mining now face unemployment rates well above the national average. The median household income sits at just $57,000, ranking 47th nationally, with nearly 17% of residents living in poverty. In some Appalachian counties, the figure exceeds 25%, with families surviving on food stamps, disability checks, and temporary work. The workforce participation rate is dismal, with just 58% of working-age adults employed or even looking for work. Healthcare is buckling. 12 rural hospitals have closed since 2010, and Kentucky's life expectancy trails the U.S. average by 4 years. The opioid crisis remains a devastating force, claiming 2,100 lives annually and draining both communities and budgets. Education offers little relief. Only 27% of adults hold college degrees, and many rural schools operate with outdated textbooks, poor facilities, and underpaid teachers. As a result, young people leave, never to return, hollowing out small towns across the state. Infrastructure adds more weight to the decline. 1 in 10 bridges is structurally deficient, and rural broadband is patchy, keeping communities cut off from modern economic opportunity. Kentucky's collapse isn't just about unemployment, it's about abandonment. Whole regions risk being forgotten, left to crumble as the nation moves on.
Number 4. Nevada. Nevada dazzles with neon lights, casinos, and the endless lure of Las Vegas. But underneath, its economy is one of the most fragile in the nation. Nearly 30% of the state's workforce depends on tourism, hospitality, and gaming, industries that collapse overnight during downturns. In the Great Recession, Nevada's unemployment soared above 13%, the highest in the U.S., and many workers never recovered. The housing market remains dangerously volatile. Nevada was ground zero in the 2008 foreclosure crisis. Prices have since rebounded, but affordability is gone. In Las Vegas, the median home price hovers near $450,000, while household incomes average just $72,000. Families are stretched thin, and another recession could trigger yet another foreclosure wave. Outside of Vegas and Reno, the picture is darker. Rural counties face depopulation, aging residents, and limited health care. Many communities are effectively medical deserts. Infrastructure compounds the vulnerability. 20% of Nevada's bridges are rated deficient, while the Colorado River's reservoirs, the state's water lifeline, have fallen to historic lows. Water scarcity is not just an economic problem, it's an existential one. Budgetary fragility only deepens the crisis. Nevada has no state income tax, relying almost entirely on sales taxes and gaming revenue. When tourism dips, as it did by 30% during the pandemic, revenues collapse and services are cut. Nevada's economy is a high-stakes casino bet. Glamorous when the chips are stacked, but devastating when the cards fall wrong.
Number 3. Louisiana. Louisiana is collapsing on multiple fronts, socially, economically, and environmentally. Nearly 19% of residents live in poverty, one of the highest rates in the U.S. The median household income hovers at just $56,000, well below the national average. The state's economy leans heavily on oil and gas, a boom and bust cycle that devastates small towns when energy prices fall or federal policy shifts toward renewables. Natural disasters have compounded every weakness. Hurricane Ida caused $75 billion in damages in 2021, wiping out homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure. Coastal erosion is eating Louisiana alive, with a football field of land lost every 100 minutes. Entire communities are watching their homes vanish into the Gulf. Infrastructure is in tatters. Engineers graded Louisiana a D+, with 1,500 bridges deficient, crumbling roads, and outdated water systems. Baton Rouge and New Orleans remain at constant flood risk, while levees strain to keep storms at bay. Brain drain worsens the spiral. More than 70% of LSU graduates leave within 5 years, chasing jobs elsewhere. Population growth is stagnant, and many rural parishes are shrinking. Healthcare adds even more pressure. Uninsured rates are among the highest in the nation, and rural hospitals can't keep up with demand. Louisiana isn't just fragile, it's sinking, both figuratively and literally. With every storm, every flood, and every economic downturn, the clock ticks faster toward collapse.
Number 2. Hawaii. Hawaii looks like paradise from the outside. Turquoise waters, luxury resorts, postcard sunsets. But for residents, it's becoming unlivable. The median home price has exploded to $850,000, while median household income is just $88,000. For the average family, ownership is a dream that will never come true. The cost of living is the highest in America. Groceries, utilities, and household goods cost nearly double the mainland. A gallon of milk costs $6. Gasoline regularly tops $5. Renters face the same nightmare, with prices rivaling major U.S. cities, but with fewer high-paying jobs to offset costs. Tourism provides nearly 30% of state GDP. The pandemic exposed the danger of this reliance when arrivals dropped by 70% in 2020, leaving tens of thousands jobless and state revenues gutted. Recovery has been uneven, and any global crisis, recession, disaster, or geopolitical conflict could devastate the islands again. Locals are leaving. Native Hawaiians and working-class families are being priced out by investors, vacation rentals, and wealthy mainland buyers. Since 2010, Hawaii has lost tens of thousands of long-term residents, fueling a population decline that weakens the tax base. Healthcare and infrastructure strain daily life. The islands face doctor shortages, rural areas lack adequate facilities, and 80% of food is imported, leaving Hawaii uniquely vulnerable to global supply disruptions. Energy costs remain among the nation's highest. For the wealthy, Hawaii is paradise. For residents, it's a financial nightmare teetering on collapse.
Number 1. Illinois. Illinois hides one of the largest financial bombs in America: pensions. The state's retirement systems are underfunded by a staggering $139 billion, the deepest hole in the nation. That's nearly $11,000 for every single resident.
This shortfall drags Illinois' credit rating just above junk status, making borrowing more expensive than almost anywhere else. Every downturn, the state borrows more, diverting money away from schools, healthcare, and infrastructure just to keep the system afloat. Property taxes are crushing. At 2.2%, homeowners pay some of the highest rates in the country. On a $300,000 home, that's $6,600 annually. Families are fleeing. In 2024 alone, Illinois lost 83,000 residents, one of the largest population declines in the nation. And it's the high earners who leave first, taking their tax dollars with them. Outside Chicago's gleaming skyline, much of Illinois struggles. Manufacturing has collapsed, small towns are hollowing out, and schools in poorer districts are chronically underfunded. Infrastructure is deteriorating fast, with 2,400 bridges deficient and billions in deferred repairs piling up each year. The math is brutal. Falling tax revenues, rising pension obligations, and an accelerating exodus. Illinois isn't slowly declining, it's heading toward financial implosion. When the next recession hits, the state will face service cuts, tax hikes, and a downward spiral that could push it past the breaking point. The pension bomb isn't ticking anymore, it's already sparking.
Final conclusion. America's cracks are no longer hidden. They're widening into fractures. From West Virginia's opioid-ravaged towns to Illinois' looming pension bomb. From the fragile casino economy of Nevada to the sinking coastlines of Louisiana, the story is the same. Entire states standing on foundations too weak to survive the next storm. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about schools closing, hospitals vanishing, roads collapsing, and families leaving in search of a future. It's about young people graduating only to flee, leaving behind aging populations, crumbling tax bases, and broken promises. It's about communities hollowing out until they're nothing but memories of what once was. The truth is stark. America is already $35 trillion in debt, climbing by $1 trillion every 100 days. When the next downturn comes, the weakest states won't just struggle, they'll implode. Some are already living the collapse in slow motion. Others are one shock away from seeing the bottom fall out. And here's the question every viewer should ask. If these states can collapse this quickly, how safe is your own community? Don't wait until the headlines hit. Hit subscribe to discover the nation and stay ahead of the storm, because the cracks we're exposing today are the fault lines that could reshape America tomorrow.